Welcome to another episode of Collective Conversations. I am your host, Mike Brewer, and today we are talking prop tech with Shawn Massie, the Chief Technical Officer, or Technology Officer, rather, at Quext. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Very glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So even though you're not a graduate of Texas Tech University, is it fair to say that you get your guns up for the Red Raiders?
Yeah, definitely fair to say. I used to work there in the past. You can see my autograph football collection in the background, actually, if you look close enough. So, yeah, definitely guns up from me.
Right on. I love that. I love that. Well, why don't you, for our listeners and viewers, just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do there at Quext?
Yeah, for sure. Love to. Again, name is Shawn Massie. I've worked for Quext. I've actually just had a recent title shift over into more of a chief information officer role. So still on the technology side, just splitting that a bit with one of our other fellow leaders named Trey Johnson, who heads up our IoT initiatives and products. And been here really since the beginning of Quext. Came into the multifamily space about 5.5 years ago. Prior to that, was working in education, doing application development, training, data, lots and lots of data. That was actually at Texas Tech University. Then through mutual contacts, ended up with a great opportunity to come into the multifamily space and have been really, I would say, been working towards the Quext initiative really probably since I even knew Quext was going to be a thing. So from the beginning, that was always probably where we were going to head no matter what, just because we could kind of see there was this giant need in the industry for new things and new technology and some updates. So been a blast the whole time.
Oh, I can imagine. It's what comes to mind for me is that technology, the rapid pace of change in the world of technology. You can't help but having a blast along the way because whatever you work on today could be obsolete tomorrow and necessitate change. Is that fair to say?
Oh, that's more than fair to say. Just to see the change in the last 5.5 years has been crazy, and you can sense within the multifamily space that's really starting to speed up. I think there's a level of awareness to that fact that occurred probably starting about 5 years ago. So coincidence? Probably not, that we're really starting to catch up all at the same time. So it is really exciting to see what is occurring and what's going to be happening over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, I believe that to be true, and I can't wait to get into that kind of topic with you. But let's just to give context and sort of frame our conversation today. Quext, what does the company work on specifically in the way of product offerings for the multifamily space?
Yeah, well, so I teased one of them already, but we are really pushing into many verticals, and the goal for Quext is to be, a broad technology solutions company for the multifamily space. And that started with us working on our Quext Connect product line and leveraging the expertise we have in the telco space and property-wide Wi-Fi and working those agreements and everything you need to know to do that right. There's a lot of ins and outs. There's restrictions with marketing agreements and MSAs that not everybody knows how to navigate. And we lucked into a great team and great leadership that has all the there's a wealth of knowledge and experience specifically in that, and it really puts us in a spot where we're an expert in what you need to do and how you should run, the deployments and the full program. So that Quext Connect is a very solid Quext product and Quext offering. Then we get into some of the more exciting and flashy stuff that everybody wants to talk about, IoT, and there's a lot of talk around, hey, what's the future of IoT? And we've spent years doing nothing but studying IoT, and we started down that path on, hey, how do you retrofit a community to do IoT effectively without having negative impact on a property's existing Wi-Fi solution, without having overly burdensome network infrastructure costs. And how can you do it quickly? And we landed with what we're very, very proud of, and then that's our Quext IoT product. And we're leveraging a patented solution that is game changing in everything that it does. So we can come in and we install one gateway, uh, typically at the leasing office, and we can cover your entire property, and that is your network setup. So you set it up, and it's basically plug and play at that point. It's very, very quick. It's very user friendly, and it has lots of potential to grow and be an outstanding platform and game changer in the smart tech IoT space. That closes the kind of the physical components. Then we get
Right.
into a lot of the software pieces that we're touching. And the two products we have out right now that we're both very proud of is we have a website building CMS component tool where hey,
Hmm.
you select a template, it throws in all of your base widgets, you drag and drop to rearrange to what you'd like. You can input your content and you can go publish your website. That gets paired very nicely with one of our flashier products, and that's the Quext Digital Human. And Quext Digital Human is a change in thought process of what a typical chatbot should be. And the problem with typical chatbots is you lose one. Everybody knows that it's a computer, but you lose some of that human element, and your engagement falls. And you can see that through the data that typically comes across with a lot of those interactions. But Quext Digital Human comes in, and we add a human element back into that process. So when you're engaging with one of our digital humans, there's an actual digital human on your screen, on your device, that can interact with you and gives facial expressions and talks and presents and can really guide you through a deeper conversation of the community, of its amenities. We get into layer two amenity level. So not just asking, hey, do you have a swimming pool? But it can textually know, hey, is it a saltwater pool? Is it heated? Is it a lap pool? And all of those elements that you might ask, our digital human can facilitate that with the objective of getting you to schedule that tour, come on site, see it in person, and become a resident.
Wow,
It's
that's
a
a lot.
lot. It is a lot.
So in a nutshell, what I heard is we've got community-wide Wi-Fi that you set in place. So sort of the ether and the communication kind of backbone. Then you've got your gateway, which allows you to do distribution of that particular Wi-Fi in the ways that you want to do it. You want to exercise end use, and then you've got these interesting marketing products by way of the website and by way of the digital human being. That, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, you're spot on.
Excellent. So let's start at the top. When you're putting in that you know Wi-Fi, community-wide Wi-Fi, you're creating an opportunity for rev shares. I assume there's
Mm-hmm.
traditional that comes by way of the big providers, but I'm assuming you've got a rev model baked into that. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And we have great partnerships with some of the national providers, so we can we can negotiate and get some of those rates based on our relationships and partnerships that most people can't get, and we can just offer you pretty much any flavor that you're looking for uh, at a rate that is as good as you're going to get anywhere. And we're doing most, if not all, that legwork for you. So it's a very, very nice way to transition you from, hey, I think this is a good idea and people are telling me I can make additional revenue from it, to you can run through our online revenue calculator, see what your results will be, and then we'll get you that deal. So we really take that soup to nuts and get you all the way across the finish line with exactly what you're hoping to deploy for your property. And we've found that it actually it improves resident experience and it improves resident life because we're giving them something that, from a quality standpoint, is better than what they probably would have bought themselves, but we're getting it at a lower rate for them, even with the revenue share. So when COVID happened, we had just rolled out many properties, and we had many instances of residents reaching out saying, "Hey, you saved me during COVID because I
Oh,
wasn't in a spot where I could, afford as much as I could, but you got me a different rate, or you got me better service, which made it where I could do more online and facilitate the needs of my family in what was a very stressful time." So um, we even got into the point where we had residents thinking it was not true. Like, "Hey, you couldn't. There's no way that you're going to give. I can get that type of bandwidth on this product for that price because I was paying more than that." And they fact checked us, and they speed tested it, and sure enough, they, they gave us high fives. You were right. This is a great deal. So it feels like it's a hard thing to transition into, but really once you start doing it, and the acceptance comes, and they see what you get and the benefit that comes with it, it really kind of goes and sells itself.
I love a good story. And it's I imagine, I don't even have to imagine. I heard many stories where people, you're not working in the office anymore. You're working in your home, and because everybody's working at home, the drawdown on bandwidth is just off the charts. Whether it be an individual single family home or it be in an apartment community. And so what I hear you saying is, hey, we delivered an at par or better service for a lower price during a pandemic, which is powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly the testimonies that we were receiving back in our office. So it was a very positive thing, that we were pushing, and it helped alleviate the nerves that were coming with it as it was rolling out.
I love that. So let's come down sort of next step to the gateway. Um, so I obviously I know just enough to be dangerous. So there are products out there in the world that you have a hub in every single apartment. What I hear you saying is you have one hub in your leasing office, and you're able to distribute that sort of web effect across the entire community, allowing you to do the smart locks, thermostats. I'm assuming leak detection, things of that nature. Is that, can you kind of unpack that piece for us?
Yeah, it's a little bit different than that, but you're
Okay.
touching around what was defined as the initial problem. And um, it started. I found myself on an elevator at one of the multifamily conferences, and on the elevator were a couple of mid-level executives talking about IoT, and the difficulties they had with troubleshooting IoT. And they were on a property that had a one hub to one unit deployment, and they're like, "Man, we've been working on this issue forever. We thought the resident was unplugging their hub, but it turns out every time we go, they're showing us and it's plugged in, and we just can't figure it out." And the end result was the hub was sitting somewhere, and without directly trying to interfere with it, the resident was putting an aquarium in front of the hub. And so
Oh,
the signal wouldn't propagate through the aquarium to effectively control their lock and their thermostat. And they spent a ton of time. And so the beginning of our thought process was a little bit, not only can how do I retrofit effectively, but how do I prevent a resident interaction causing a problem? And so we back that into, well, what is it that is there that the resident interacts with daily that they're
mhm.
not going to try to go in and cause an interference with? And what we landed on was the thermostat. So in our units on a Quext IoT deployment, the thermostat and the hub are combined into one device. So we've patented and built our own thermostat. Everything's contained in it. It does all the communication to your smart devices in your unit, but it always has power. It is not interfered with because the residents are going to go up and look at it. They're going to manually adjust it. Um, they have the option to control that all within their app, but it really makes it into takes you down from it removes one device from that equation is the easiest way to state it. So then it's the how do I get that out? Um, Typically what you start talking then is, well, let's go Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a great solution for that, but it's not always the best solution. So
Right.
you do have, agreements that state, hey, if I'm delivering property-wide Wi-Fi, I can't use that network for IoT traffic. That's not part of that vendor. So then you end up having to run something else, or you end up trying to say, well, let's put a SIM card in it and use cellular. Well, that's great, but it doesn't work on every property because you don't always get good cell service depending on where the air conditioner is and on. Are you on the first floor or the third floor, and which way is the sun setting? I mean, there's all kinds of things that come in, whether that's whether that was a joke in statement or not. You have potential issues, and we wanted to eliminate as much of that as we can and make it very, very easy. So all of our hubs, whether no matter where they are on the property, they all aggregate and signal to one gateway, typically contained at the leasing office. And that gateway, its antenna has enough strength, it can cover that entire property. So it's using a communication protocol called LoRaWAN, which is a long
Hmm.
range wide area network. The range on it, if we're in an open field, is miles. So it's very, very long distance, but very, very small packet size. So if I'm looking to send an update and I want to change the temperature on my thermostat, I'm really just needing to say, change the temperature to this. I don't need to send streaming video over a LoRa network. But it allows me to put in one antenna and then I can just go install. And I can do I can do one at a time. I can do anything I want, and the LoRa gateway and the LoRa network is able to accept that and just grow as my property grows.
Is just for my own curiosity, is that would that fit the definition of edge computing, those lower packet type information transfers, or is that not edge computing?
No, it's we're not doing edge computing on in that instance. Edge computing would be more if I had a LoRa gateway, if I had a computer that was there that aggregated that information on the edge of my network. Think of it more of edge of network is how I typically describe that. Um,
Understood.
yeah, so like greenfield stuff.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
Yep.
So, okay, so we've got, I think we have that purely defined. So, one of the interesting things, this is not my novel question. I heard this question asked 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't know why it sticks with me, but it does. So, you have all these existing multifamily buildings all across the country, right? Built over many, many, many decades. And trying to put these devices in those communities, especially as it relates to like leak detection. Um, and I don't know if that's a piece of your offering or it will be at some point, but it's often interesting to me that, or the question was, can you get insurance companies involved in sort of funding the infrastructure or the retrofits of all these communities across the country because it would benefit them immensely, right? They're insuring buildings that could be damaged by water, and it's very expensive when it happens. Is that an arena that you or your company have danced around or talked directly with?
Yeah, I would say not on. We haven't discussed it in this as directly as you're stating it. We definitely see that as there's a possibility there because I can be aware of things so much faster thanks to the developing IoT technology. There's definitely that option. In my opinion, I don't feel like using leak detection as the example. I don't feel like leak detection is mastered yet, and not that
Right.
there's not the tool, not that there's not the tools to do it, but it's very, very point specific. So if
Right.
I put leak detector under the sink, I have to combat a few things. If the board that it's sitting on is warped, it could be higher than where my leak occurs. I also have the chance of resident interference at that point. And so you're trying to get that weighed out just right is one of the things we're looking at into tackling is we have on our roadmap and we will be doing leak detection. But we want to make sure that we are doing it in a way that really helps eliminate those pain points, but they also answer the questions. Um, and all the data that comes with it should help feed the insurance discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And it's interesting. I just moved into a single family home. We sold our house, and to your point, this house has leak detection. To your point about being spot leak detection, little wires that hang down, and they're little white tabs that sit on, let's say, under the sink that sit on that board. I, not thinking about it, picked that little wire up and kind of stuck it up in the corner while I was putting all my products, cleaning products and things. and then and then it dawned on me what I had done, right? That I just completely disabled that or made it
That's
ineffective.
exactly right. And I've heard stories too of like very similar setup under the sink in the bathroom or behind the toilet, and the humidity got too high and set it off, or they got out of the shower and the shower curtain dripped too much and set it off. Neither of those two were actual events, but the maintenance staff and the property reacted as if they were.
Right. Right. It seems like the solution has to be baked into the supply, like the actual supply line. So you're measuring the integrity of maybe the pipe or the flow on the inside of the pipe or something of that nature. Who knows?
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that.
That'll be fun to see as that evolve over time. So, okay, so then I'm interested in your websites. Sort of moving, I guess, down. So, okay, smart locks and
Mm-hmm.
thermostats are the two products that you have today. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we're actively working through our roadmap on additional devices. So that it definitely is something that is coming soon. It's just not here today, but again, want to make sure we have the right solution for our customer base and for what Quext stands for.
That makes sense. And the thermostat doubles as the hub in
Correct.
your solution.
That's
Excellent.
correct.
Okay, so moving so website certainly a tech, I guess you could label that technology, but how it's interesting that you have website. You're sort of I think about sort of prop tech hardware slash data collection sort of mechanism, and then websites. That's marketing branding, but it also is a data collection point. How did that become part of your roadmap and ultimately a product offering?
Yeah, that's a feels like a very long story, but it might not. It might not be that long. Um, we started initially, me and one other person thought we could master all of this ourselves, and we quickly learned that is much larger than what two people should ever consider doing. And so, as we've grown in staff and knowledge and expertise, uh, websites was one of those pieces that we needed to really start complementing digital human and to be a complement to some of the other objectives that we have going out. So those pieces, if you buy them both from Quext, they work very, very well together. They natively cross integrate, where you're not needing to do as much stuff to get it deployed. So it's just a very good complementary pair between those two products. And at the same time, our owner operator hat, we needed something to pair with that side, so it just made sense to us.
That makes sense. And so it sounds like the user experience is pretty simple in that you can drag and drop things around sort of content organization, and then certainly the backside, I guess I'd call it maintenance, um, baking in metadata and things of that nature, buying photos and other things. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can do all your image tagging yourself if you'd like. Uh, so the interface is open to that level. You can go in and do all your SEO page tagging as well. So
Mm,
really trying to give you the tool to do all of it, to be, a complete, a fully complete product, not just something pretty. So there's a lot of data that marketers are looking for, uh, not only from their website, but they want to push into their website because you want to get that in front of your customer in the right way. And so SEO optimization, it is key, as well as it looking right. So you want to look modern and up to date, but you want the right information to push you up the ladder to be in the right spot as you present yourself, to your potential customers. So really trying to get that balance is what Quext websites is striving for.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, let's segue over to digital humans. I've I won't name the other company uh out of respect, but I've seen one other version of a digital human, and at the time I saw it. Well, as it relates to the multifamily space, I've seen some other digital humans out there, but at the time it was a little bit creepy in that it was. I, I I remember walking away with this sort of like that was weird feeling versus the texting back and forth with what was a computer, but and I've not seen yours in all fairness, but talk to us about that.
Yeah, digital human is, it's probably one of the more interesting things to talk about. Just from a technology perspective, it's one of the more complicated things from a software aspect that we're looking at. It uses all kinds of AI and machine learning, at different levels, and some of the new things that are coming out for it are going to use, cutting edge AI. That's getting into, uh, like GPT-3 type stuff. So if you think of it in the evolution, every iteration is 10 to 100 times greater than the last one with AI, and GPT-3 is like what is new, and our stuff is new roadmap stuff is going to be leveraging that type of AI technology. So very very cool stuff to come. Not to get too far off track, but we started a partnership with a company they're based out of New Zealand. They have a California, North American presence, and that company is called Soul Machines. And they are started as an offshoot of, I think it was a Hollywood movie production company. So Peter Jackson and the Hobbit movies, and you've seen the newest King Kong movies, and some of those things. The people that did that are the people behind the digital humans, and so their digital human looks very very real. But they also try to add a little bit of an element to make it not quite so real that you're confused, but just real enough to your point, make it the right level of creepy. And it it is it is very easy to interact with. We have two digital humans out right now. There's more on the way, and the user experience is laid out very very nice in the aspect of you can decide who you'd like to interact with. So we give you those options. So if you want to talk to Mia, or if you want to talk to Jordan, you can make that selection. And then we add in a language selection on top of that. So if you want to talk in English or if you want to talk in Spanish, you make that selection, everything adjusts accordingly, and then you can start having your conversation. The conversation is everything about your community. So how many unit, how many one bedroom, or do you have a one bedroom unit? Do you have a pool? Is there a dog park? Is there a fee? All of those questions, down to what restaurants and schools are close to this property. Digital human has context around all of that. So there's around a little over 1,600 pre-built responses, and so setup time is usually what people ask next. Like, well, how long does that take to set up? And it takes about 10 minutes, and you can have a full conversation about your property. If you want to get into adding photos, that can take as long as you'd like. If you want to add custom responses, modify which responses are used. You can get down and really customize it to any level you would like, uh, and it's immediately ready to go. So there's no waiting on building anything. It's immediately ready. That's not even like one of the cooler parts about it is when you start that conversation, it builds emotional quotient scores on the conversation based on voice inflection and your facial expressions. So if the user has decided to engage those tools through their browser, the digital human knows, hey, I have a positive response, I have a negative response, or if I have a neutral response. So if you said, hey, how much is a one bedroom apartment? And you get a negative response, there's some information there that we're gathering that can lead to changes that you may not get. Or if you get lots of questions about your pool and it's very positive, there may be something about your pool that sets it apart that you haven't noticed that can shift some of your marketing objectives. So there's a whole wealth of knowledge that's generated from the emotional quotient score and the engine behind that can lead to actionable steps to be taken.
So my wheels are turning 1,000 miles an hour now. So
Yep.
so settle the debate for me, if you can, of 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 the people that would argue that path based AI is better than what I hear you describing as more NLP, and maybe even in advance of that, it's sort of next generation in NLP. But so one would argue that path based is much better because people any nuance outside of a fair degree of probability would necessitate a human getting involved, right? Because the AI can't answer the question. But it sounds like, and look, I'll give you. I'm on the side of the NLP debate, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Oh, that's a large question, Mike. I'm not on the path side because I don't believe that it fits the thought process of generations that we see today. And we, I'll be honest, we started looking at path based when we started our digital human build, and it was immediately asked. I can't remember, one of the early meetings might have been me that asked it. I said, well, why are we running path based when while I'm looking at the kitchen, if it pops into my head that I want to know if you have a fitness center, I should be able to ask about the fitness center as if we were in person. And so we really tried to build and model that way. It does make it a little bit more challenging in that you have to think a little bit broader. But the tools are out there now, and not to throw out some of the things that we're going to do, but there's tools that can answer almost all of your questions. And as you get into more of the GPT-3 level type stuff, I can give you a valid response based on the context of your question, and I can lead you to, you know, a general path when I don't know the answer, and still give you the NLP experience. So I should allow you to ask anything, but I want my digital human to have domain specific knowledge and context about why you're here in the first place. So to me, my digital human should know everything it can know about your property, your community, the surrounding area. And it should be able to talk about that and facilitate that need, and have the offshoot being, if when you ask a completely random question, I need to be able to like understand that and direct you back to my domain specific knowledge as if it was in person. And there's some other tools that we're looking at adding that will help make that even more, I guess, I would think of the word. I guess more. We'll just use. It'll make it crazier. It'll make it even broader experience where we would challenge you to stump and find a question that there was not an answer for. So there's lots of cool tech that are going to make that game changing as it advances through time.
I I got to tell you, I'm so excited about it. And I think one of your prior points, the accelerated pace of change in this arena is just mind boggling, such that you could see this stuff start to present itself in the next 6, 12, 18 months, plus minus. I, I want to back up one second because you said something that caused me to think. So to your point about through those nuances and inflection and let's call it body language that presents, etc. The and you used the pool as an example. If there's something special and unique about your pool that you might use as a marketing opportunity, is it a far stretch to think that the way you're plugged together, your digital human could then advise the website to automatically update, and to the point where the AI could actually craft the ad copy that would search engine optimize, and it would make that change for you, so the leasing, because somebody in the back office doesn't have to make that change. Digital human identifies, sees, crafts the change, implements the change, boom, you're off to the races.
Yeah, that is definitely in the realm of possible. And that gets into a spot of you saying, I think I know what my SEO optimization looks like right now. But now I have live user fed feedback that I can update that on the fly. And so, yeah, like how cool is it to think that what I think is important to my community can be updated in real time based on market need, and that's what is potential in the future.
Without you thinking about it or touching it or doing it yourself, it's just done. It's just
That's
done.
correct. It can be just done.
That
Yep.
is, and the thing about that, if your digital human is optimizing all of that stuff behind the scenes for you, they also have this catalog of prospects that may not have leased in your community or in your broader sort of property set, meaning your book of business, and they can go back. And I'm certain that there's sort of this alumni community, also people that have lived in your community in the past that could come back. But now this engine can actually sort of keep ongoing marketing efforts behind the scenes with no human touch.
That's exactly right, and we can get into AI driven, system driven lead nurturing that is more than just a canned automated email response that sends something out every 3 weeks if you haven't signed a lease. Like the days of the days of a static approach are quickly leaving us, and that's where Quext wants to be right in front of that wave the whole time.
So this often brings to mind. I've had this. I'll give you the sort of Reader's Digest version of this vision, but in my mind, there's certainly this leasing and sales AI driven experience, but I've often thought in my mind that can happen on the labor distribution side of our business, meaning the service side, maintenance guys, right? And so the digital human, which acts as an assistant to the maintenance service team member, there's an input certainly that could be driven by the consumer. I have a service request. Um, I turn it in. Let's say George is the technician. He gets something on his device. And by the way, he may not be on site. He's at another community completely off of the site, but digital human says, hey, traffic patterns, you should leave now. By the way, you have this inventory on your truck because I track all of that for you. And you need to show up at 2:38. You have a digital lock. We'll let you right in. You've got the part, like I said, on your cart. And is there this version of that happening?
You, there, you will see a version of that happening, and even on the other side of that equation, where I'm submitting a service request, that should be one thing. But think of there's a whole list of, resident needs and questions
Mm-hmm.
that a digital human can facilitate and keep that off of office staff burden. And
Yes.
that's true for the office. That's also true from a Quex perspective. So we look at it and say, not only can it answer questions about your property, it should be able to help and facilitate things around Quex product as well. So if I need to troubleshoot something and it's not a property offering, so if it's my Quex thermostat, why can't digital human help facilitate the start of that conversation and know when to hand me off to a human, but also know when to give me the answer right now? So all of those things are, we're actively looking into them, and we've roadmapped pretty much all of this that we're talking about is it's on our things to come. So very, very exciting growth in use cases around the digital human front, and much, much more to come.
It just brought to mind consumer reviews. So if a digital human, based on all this data that they've collected from my interaction with him or her or it, however you describe that,
Yeah.
could take my sentiment, right, and turn it into a review copy and send it to me to say, hey, it's time to turn in a review. I wrote it for you. What do you think? Do you like it? Do you want to edit it a little bit? When you're done, just say go, and boom, done.
Yeah, you definitely could. And I was actually, it's funny you mentioned it that way. I was playing with a GPT-3 content generating engine yesterday, and I was simulating something very, very similar. And I was just putting in, I wanted to put in that. I wanted to put in general context of what I felt about X, and it would kick me out like a whole one-page report about me and what I felt about something. Like it's almost scary how fast it can do it too. Like we're talking seconds.
That is just mind boggling to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It it will, that type of technology is definitely going to change business process, which that can be a scary thing in itself. And it gets into one of the things that Quext wants to be all about, and that's not about trying to get computers to just do everything, um, but we really want to be in the business of helping build community, and that means allow people to interact with people when, and allow your property staff to go build community and make you it gets you long-term residents that want to be there. They're engaged, they enjoy, they see what's going on and what you're doing, because the business side is just taking care of itself. And that's one of the core things we hold to, is we want to keep people in the, as the middle piece of everything we do.
You're music to my ears. It's I've I say this often to our team. We So Bill Gates he was on a mission a long time ago to put a computer on every desk in business and in personal homes, mainly for his operating system, right?
Yeah.
But I'm on a mission to take those devices off desks and get all of that sort of input technology, aside from maybe displays, completely out of the offices for the very reason that you cite. And that is, I want to look at you when I'm having a conversation with you. I don't want to be distracted by the technology that is all around me. We've lost that. We've lost human connection. And to the extent that you can disappear that stuff, just let it happen behind the scenes, you can get back to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so, and I think there's a right level of what you need per person, but we don't have the option of really trying to adjust that. And um, this is, we're hoping to help push technology to a way where you can have more person interactions and less computer interactions. And even, man, if we could have one less email, I'd take one less email. If that was all we got out of it, I would take that. Just one less email. We get enough emails.
That makes me laugh because I think I sent you 3 emails prior to us hitting the record button today.
That's just, hey, the coordination is coordination, but
I
there's
did
only
three emails, 3 emails to 2 different email addresses. So it was.
yeah. But if you had had my cell phone, we could have settled it really, really quick.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's good stuff. Well, let's I want to maybe take a hard left a little bit, because what we're talking about ultimately is just a boatload of data collection. Um, and maybe we can sort of bring this thing to a close talking about data, because data, gee whiz, you say that and all kinds of things come to mind in terms of protection and who owns it, and how do you get to disclose that you have data and what you're going to do with that data. And so I'm interested how you Obviously, we know how we use the data, or we want to use the data, but how do you think about it, protecting that, such that the both from a consumer's perspective, but also from a business perspective, because you take on a lot of
Mhm.
liability when you put a lot of data in your bank.
You definitely do. Man, from the beginning, it was early early 2018, end of 17. We were starting to map and draw all these things out. And one of the very first things we did was hired a great data scientist. Well, I'll call him a data scientist. He will say he's not. Works on our team. His name is Chris Allen. Has some multifamily background, just overly smart, very good at what he does. And I spent months sitting with him in his office, and we did nothing but talk data. And it was, what can you do with data? What would we like to do with data? Um, what should be the middle component of all of your data models and everything that you do, and would we like to do in the future, and what's wrong, and all those big questions that you like to have. And they were ultimately derailed by going to OpTech one year and went to a CCPA conference or session. I was like, well, now we got to talk about all these things. And uh, you want to talk about data privacy and retention policies? Go listen to a bunch of attorneys argue who has the right to data. And it was more than I ever wanted to know. And we took all those learnings, and I came back, and Chris and I sat down, and he goes, "Oh, I've already accounted for a lot of that." And we really started to hash it out, where we wanted to be able to have our data come in. We store it appropriately, we encrypt it appropriately, but we also wanted it to be very easy to make anonymous when it needed to be anonymous. We used probably more stringent guidelines. There's some HIPAA data guidance that Chris had some background in, that we wanted to, keep a level of that understanding in how we built data privacy within our data models, and made it where we can very quickly take a record of a conversation that's associated to a person's name, and remove that name and remove all reference across all of our platforms immediately, but maintain the data integrity that we wanted to maintain. So can't tell you all the secret sauce behind how we're doing all that, but that was very paramount in what we did. Is we wanted it to be, trackable, reportable, but still meeting all the business objectives that you wanted to meet from, data analytics and reporting, but keeping that person. Remember, we're person centered on almost everything we think through. I want to keep that person right in the middle of that conversation, and I want Quext customers and anyone who interacts with Quext software or Quext technology to know that we've thought of them first in almost every instance. And so we did that from data up.
I like the way you put that, from data up. It's I just believe in my heart of hearts that at some point, um, who knows when, the consumer is always going to argue that they own their data, or they should own their data, and they should be able to monetize their data, just like the business is given the opportunity to monetize the data. And so at some point, that's, at least in my head, it's going to become a thing. But the fact that you're thinking about it from that point up is, at least in my mind, it's ahead of the game a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like we are. I feel like we position ourselves in the right spot to adjust it. And that's probably an area of all that, when we talk through technology, it's very easy to present it in a way that is very beneficial to the property owner, and the investors and the management companies and the property staff. But we at Quext, we wanted to make sure we included as much as we could about the consumer of your product as well, because we're not just selling to you, but we're helping sell yourself to your customers, and by extension, they're one of ours, and we want to treat them right as well. So really pulling that all together. It's one of our core values as community, and we want to build that community, with you, around you, and for you. And whether that's just with your customers or on your side or your potential customers, to Quext, they're all community to us, and we want to keep that in mind and help push that objective.
I love it. I was turned on to your product probably in the very, very early innings by a mutual friend, Nathan,
Yep.
over at Watchtower. But it seems super interesting, the stuff that you were working on at the time with sort of the context of what was going on in the world. But I lost track, and today I've been brought up to speed, and I'm just fascinated by what you're working on and excited for the future of your organization. Um, I do, just to bring to close here, another
Yeah.
hard left. I have to get you. I have to get you, if you're willing to get a guns up. We need a guns up. If you give me a guns up for Texas Tech, that would be awesome. Yes,
Hey, you bet. Go Red. Go Red Raiders.
Tech, go Red Raiders. I love it. Who are the autographs from, by the way, with your footballs back there?
So two of them were Cliff Kingsbury, and then one was from his predecessor, Tommy Tuberville. And it
Excellent.
so the story, I'll tell you really quickly the story behind them. Texas Tech does a give away the game ball drawing. So I've won 3 times. Is what that means.
Oh. That is amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know if I was just lucky or what, but yeah, 3 times.
Wow. Well, yeah, you should go buy a lottery ticket. That's
Oh, I did. It didn't work out.
oh no.
That's a different
My,
beta discussion for another time.
that's fair. That's fair. Well, I want to allow you the opportunity to tell people where they can find you and learn more, not only about you, but about what you're doing there at Quext before we draw it to a close.
Yeah, the easiest way is find us online at onequext.com. That's the word one, ONEQUEXT.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn and most social media. We're always posting and doing and giving updates on different industry technologies and what we're doing out there.
Excellent. Shawn, it has been an absolute pleasure. You've blown my mind, especially on the AI front. I appreciate that. And for everyone else listening today, thank you. And we'll see you next time on Collective Conversations. Bye now.
Bye.